Hi there, and welcome to the Somewhere Between Here and Healing podcast. I'm Viv, your host and fellow traveler on this journey of navigating life after growing up with a narcissistic parent. Together, we'll explore the messy, the funny, and the downright unbelievable stories of family, life, and self discovery. Please let it be known I am not a therapist nor claim to be an expert in any way. I am simply someone who's been through it, still figuring things out, and I'm here to share my story with you. So grab your favorite drink, settle in, and let's get this thing started. Hi, everyone, and welcome back. In this space, this moment, I want to thank you for being here because today I'm diving into something that I think lives quietly inside of all of us, or can. Maybe it's tucked beneath the noise, beneath routines and roles we play, but it can be there. And I know it's something that's alive in me, something pulsing, sometimes whispering, sometimes roaring so loud I can't hear anything else. It's that feeling that something in you is shifting, or has shifted, or is about to. We all live through moments we didn't know were about to change us. Moments that don't come with warning signs or dramatic music. They come dressed in normal clothes, Monday mornings, text messages, meetings, dinners. Moments that feel like any other until they don't. You might not even know while it's happening, but later you'll look back and realize that was it. That was the moment everything cracked open. That was the moment that split my life into a moment of before and after. Sometimes it's something someone says, and it's not the first time that they might have said it. But for whatever reason, this time, it hits different. It cuts deeper. It lands in the part of you that's tired about being polite about the pain. Sometimes it's not even words, it can be a pause, a cold silence, a smirk, a dismissal. And your body can register it before your mind can even catch up. You go still, and something inside you whispers, no more. This episode is about those moments, a crossroads, if you will, tiny ruptures that break open a truth you've been trying to outrun, internal earthquakes, the ones that don't level buildings, but that can level ourselves. Now, these moments aren't always loud. They're not always about walking away or leaving someone. Sometimes they're about leaving the version of yourself that you keep shrinking into. The mask you wore to keep the peace, the silence you swallowed to keep your job, the smile you forced when your spirit was screaming on the inside. And even though the moment itself may only last a few seconds, what comes after? The unraveling, the reckoning, the rising, well, that all can take months, years, a lifetime. But that moment, it was a beginning. This episode today is for those moments. For the person inside you who knows something has to change, even if you're not sure what comes next. I'll share a couple of stories, real and reflective, and maybe a few questions to press you gently or not so gently on the parts of you that are aching to grow. And my hope is that when we're done here today, you can walk away not with all the answers, but maybe with a little more clarity and a little more permission to begin again, to trust yourself, to believe that your turning point doesn't need to look like anyone else's. It is not about what your moment looked like, felt like. It's about what the moment means. So let's begin. Let's talk about what it means to stand at the edge of a life you can no longer live, or a part of that life, and take the first step into one that is fully yours. Let me tell you a little story. It's not real flashy and it's not tragic in the traditional sense, but it was a real moment and it is mine. There was a person in my life, and maybe down the road we'll get into this deeper, but This is someone I had tried to give every chance to, someone I spent a lot of time with, someone I had forgiven more times than I'd like to admit, someone whose behavior I would explain away to friends, to myself, and more than once. A place I stayed for far too long. There were red flags. I guess little ones at first, dismissive jokes, control disguised as concern, comments that left me second guessing myself. And every time I felt something was off, I would just swallow it. I told myself I was being too sensitive, too emotional, too reactive. I silenced all my alarm bells until one day it happened. This person sat me down to have a conversation in front of other so called friends, and they said it. Was this a creative decision, or were you trying to make a statement? Help me understand why you deviated from what we needed. Those sentences don't seem like much, but man, they hit me in a way. They hit me because I had done exactly what I had been asked of by this person. There was no deviation. And I felt blindsided, embarrassed in front of my friends. I didn't scream. I didn't even defend myself. I didn't cry, at least not right away. But inside me, something cracked. And in that crack, light poured in, truth poured in. I got up and I walked away. I left. I got into my car and I looked at myself in the rearview mirror. And I didn't just look, I saw myself. And I knew right then I could never go back to who I was 10 minutes before. Those words, as cruel and as false as they were, gave me clarity. It was a culmination of every quiet betrayal, every moment I'd given that person the benefit of the doubt instead of giving myself the benefit of truth. And that was one of my moments. And that moment, that was the line in the sand, the point of no return. I didn't leave that relationship immediately. Let me clarify. I left physically, but emotionally and mentally, not so much. But I started to. And that moment changed me going forward. Not just because of what that person said, even though that hurt and still hurts, but more so because of what it woke up in me and made me realize. Now, after any of those crossroad moments, those ones that split you open, it is tempting to rush into a strength, to put on a brave face, to say, I'm fine, to maybe post something bold, wipe your tears away, declare the lesson learned, and just move forward like nothing happened. Because strength is rewarded and strength is admired. And sometimes pretending we're okay feels safer than admitting we're shattered. The truth is, there's a strange kind of grief that can come next after these moments. A grief I don't think people talk about enough. And not for what happened exactly, but for who you were before it did. Grief for the version of you who stayed or who tolerated more than they should have. Grief for who dimmed their light to keep somebody else comfortable, who believed they had to earn rest, respect, or love. And even when you know walking away from a moment or a person is right, that grief still lives inside you. And it can rise in quiet moments, in spaces where chaos used to live. It asks hard questions. Why didn't I leave sooner? Was it really that bad? Maybe I overreacted. Maybe I was the problem. If only I had done something different. If only it had been this way and not that. That second guessing, it is normal. It is human, especially when the world around you is still telling you to be understanding or to move on, stay professional, ignore it, let it go. Especially when the person or system you left behind is still trying to rewrite the story and to make you doubt a truth that you may have finally accepted. But here is what I want you to hold on to. Seeing and understanding isn't cruel. It's not betrayal. It's not cold or unforgiving. Clarity is a kindness, even when it hurts. Honestly, especially when it hurts. Because clarity doesn't mean you're heartless. It means you finally listen to the part of you that's been whispering, this is not love. This is not safety. This is not for me. It means you can stop gaslighting yourself and you can choose your peace over performance. And it means you believed, maybe even for the first time, that you deserve more. And you do. The aftermath of these moments, it can be messy. There will be days you feel fierce and free, like you have reclaimed your power. And there will be days you feel lost, lonely, heavy. You'll miss the familiarity, even if it was toxic. And you'll crave the version of you that didn't know those truths yet, because the truth can be a burden sometimes. There may be nights when your hands hover over your phone, wanting to reach out, mornings when you convince yourself it wasn't that serious, times when you want to shrink back into what's familiar and to what you knew before, because healing is exhausting. But here's the thing, there is power in honoring the change, in not rushing the comeback, in staying in that space between who you were and who you're becoming, and letting it teach you something new. Those silences, the aches and pains, the space you once filled with someone else's chaos or validation, that's space where your soul can breathe again. And that's a space where your truth is making room for itself. So don't run from the grief. Go ahead and let it wash over you. And let it show you what mattered and what never did. And let it be a reminder to you that even in the mess, you are healing. You are healing. Now, we all have these turning points, and not necessarily in this bigger picture of gaslighting, narcissism, etc., but just in life. And these moments can be quiet, loud, devastating, or liberating. Let me tell you one more little story, a story about someone that stayed too long. Let's call her Jordan. On the outside, Jordan's relationship looked fine. It wasn't what you'd call bad by any means. Her partner didn't scream at her, didn't hit her. There were no slammed doors or broken things. But there was something else, something quieter. He dismissed her. He joked about things that mattered to her, then rolled his eyes when she'd asked him to stop. He'd poke at her insecurities like it was a game. And her sensitivity, the way she'd second guess herself, the way she cried at commercials and movies and or perhaps paused too long before speaking. And every time she asked for understanding, he'd just sigh and say, "Oh, you're too much. You read into everything. I'm not picking on you. You need to lighten up." And because he wasn't yelling and because he wasn't exactly cruel in an obvious way, she stayed and she told herself, well, this isn't that bad. She kept trying to adjust, to laugh more for him, ask for less from him, convincing herself she was just being sensitive like he was telling her. But she'd started to shrink. She'd stopped sharing certain parts of herself, like her opinions, creative ideas, even her true sense of humor, because he'd always find a way to poke holes in them. He made her feel foolish, needy, dramatic. And the worst part, she didn't even notice how much of herself she was losing until she was already half gone. Jordan's moment didn't come like a storm, it came in like a whisper. Her and her partner were arguing about dishes, dishes of all things. Something seemingly so mundane, it barely warranted emotion. She had asked gently if he could rinse his plate the next time since she'd been doing the cleanup every night that week. He didn't yell, he didn't call her names. He just rolled her eyes and let out that long, familiar sigh and said, "Geez, you're lucky I even put up with you." And for Jordan, that was it. That one sentence, quiet, simple, casual. But it was the right time, the right moment, and it hit her right in the center of her chest because that phrase, that part of that phrase, put up with you, it echoed everything she'd been bearing, every fear that she was annoying, that she was difficult, that she was too much, that being loved meant being tolerated and not cherished. And something inside her, something that had been dimmed for far too long, finally flickered to life. She didn't scream either. She didn't immediately pack a bag and slam the door. She just went still. And in that stillness, she was able to see clearly. This wasn't love. This is erosion. Little pieces of her had been chipping away, one offhand comment at a time. It took her weeks to leave because it's hard to walk away from someone who wasn't, quote, that bad. Maybe they could still fix things. But her clarity had cracked something open, and she couldn't go back to pretending. Later on, she would tell me, I thought leaving would be the hardest part, but staying, that's what almost killed me. Jordan's story reminds me that dangerous relationships aren't always explosive ones, although those are quite clearly dangerous as well. But sometimes they're the ones that slowly convince you your voice is too loud, your needs are too much, your love is a burden. And that is damaging, and that is untrue. There's power in quiet moments when you stop asking, is it me? And start saying, I deserve better than this. If you're standing at your own crossroads right now, or if you've just stepped past one, I want to pause here with you. I want to acknowledge the weight of this place because even when you know it's time to move on from something or someone, it doesn't mean it's easy. In fact, it rarely is. These moments can feel confusing and lonely, even when we know they're right. They can feel like jumping without a parachute, even when the ground you're standing on is crumbling and you may not have another choice. But if you're here listening, still breathing through it, still wondering what comes next, I want to offer you a couple of truths. Not answers, just anchors. Something perhaps to hold on to while you move through the ache of becoming. You are allowed to change. Even if people don't understand, even if they're disappointed, even if they say you have changed like it's a bad thing. Because here it is. You have changed. People change. You're growing, you're evolving, you're learning to listen to yourself. You're unlearning what hurt you. And growth often means outgrowing what once felt safe or normal. You're allowed to become someone who refuses to shrink, even if others liked you better small. Think about that. Ask yourself, what am I afraid will happen if I become fully, unapologetically me? Ooh, I got the chills. You are not obligated to explain your clarity. You don't owe anyone a PowerPoint presentation of your pain. Okay, that was cheesy, I know, but you don't. You don't have to defend the decision to choose peace over chaos. Not everyone will understand your shift. Most won't. And some people won't want to. They'll call it betrayal. They'll say you've changed, but protecting your peace isn't an act of cruelty. It is an act of self respect. And you are allowed to set yourself free without writing a thesis on why. Remember, someone else's confusion is not your responsibility to solve. You don't have to feel brave to be brave. There's this myth that courage looks bold, like speeches and big declarations. But sometimes courage is quiet. It's crying in your car after saying no for the first time. It's shaking as you pack your things. It's answering a text with silence instead of justification. You can be terrified and still do the right thing for yourself. You can be unsure and still choose yourself. Brave can just be another word for I did it anyway. What feels like an ending might actually be the beginning. The grief, the fear, the identity shift, it's real. And beginnings often come dressed as heartbreak. On the other side of this pain is a version of you haven't met yet. Someone who knows more, trusts different, deeper, loves better. Someone who no longer begs to be seen because they're remembering how to see themselves. Ask yourself, who am I becoming now that I've stopped trying to be who someone else wanted me to be? These crossroads, they don't need to be punishments. They're not punishments. They're initiations of a sort. They mark the moment you stop living on autopilot. They do split your story, and not into tragedy and triumph, but into before I woke up and after I decided to live awake. Let yourself grieve what's gone, what's changed. Let yourself be proud for surviving things you did not deserve. And more than anything, let yourself walk forward, even if it's slow, even if it's messy, even if your voice and body shake when you say and think, I choose me. I could probably talk about this forever and these moments forever, but I think we're going to end there for today. So maybe you have had a moment like some of the ones I talked about today. Maybe it's a moment that is still on the horizon, quietly unfolding, not quite formed, but waiting. Maybe it'll be something someone says, offhand, but unforgettable. Maybe it'll be something you feel in your chest one day while driving, or folding laundry, or staring at your own reflection. It doesn't often come with drama or fireworks, although it can. But sometimes it's just a knowing, this isn't it kind of whisper that just won't leave you alone. And if or when that moment comes, or it already has, and you're still sitting in the aftershock, not sure what that means yet, pause, breathe, and listen. That feeling, that ache, that shift, it's not here to break you. It's here to bring you home to yourself. Because you deserve to be someone you recognize and love, someone who feels safe in their own body, with their own voice, and with their own choices. As always, thank you for being here with me today, for holding space for this sacred pain, the kind that doesn't just wound, but awakens as well. The kind that opens doors to something perhaps quieter, but stronger and freer. If today's episode resonated with you, if you saw yourself in any parts of the story or felt something stir inside you, you know I'd love to hear from you. These moments can feel less heavy when we name them. And I want you to know you are never alone in yours. If today sparks something in you, an echo of a memory, a flicker of clarity, remember, change doesn't have to be loud to be real. Quiet strength is still strength. Whispers can become revolutions. Until next time, honor your turning points. Trust your inner voice even when it trembles. And give yourself permission over and over again to begin again. To stand your ground, to heal on your own timeline, to walk away if you can and need to. You don't owe anyone your smallness, and you are doing great. Talk to you soon. Thank you for listening and spending time with me today. I appreciate you all so much. If you haven't already, Please subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts and follow me on social media. Your support means the world. Plus, it really helps a podcast grow and reach more people like us. And don't forget, I'd love to hear from you. Send me your questions, share your story, or just drop by to say hello at vivvance@gmail.com. Until next time, remember, healing isn't linear, life can be unpredictable, but you are never alone in this journey. Take care, and I'll talk to you soon.